Wisdom is light. When you have wisdom, you are no longer led by circumstances, you master them. And most importantly, when you have wisdom, you begin to choose the right source concepts, the right beliefs, and the right ways to act. But what is wisdom? Is it intelligence? Is it a degree? No. Wisdom is the ability to see the essence clearly. Wisdom is when you look at the surface and perceive the root, when you look at someone's behavior and understand the pain behind it, when you look at failure and recognize the hidden lesson. Wisdom does not come from knowing a lot. Wisdom comes from knowing what is right. And to know what is right, you must have the ability to observe, reflect, and listen to yourself. Wisdom is the crystallization of three elements: understanding, compassion, and integrity. When these three elements converge, the light of wisdom will be ignited within you. Welcome to the Inner World Podcast. I am Liam Johnson, your companion on the journey of inner awakening, wisdom development, and building a deeply meaningful life from within. This is a space for those seeking truth, awakening, and a fulfilling path, not through external appearances, but through inner understanding. Today's topic is part of a 21-searcher journey to elevate inner awareness. This is not a typical motivational series. It is a practical thinking journey where each piece you receive contributes to forming a new, clear, and profound inner awareness. In the previous session, we explored 7 essential acts of giving in life as specific actions that sow seeds of positive energy. And today, we step into a foundational structure called the Triangle of Reality, the root formula of life. Why do we need to understand reality? Because we are often deceived by outward appearances. We talk a lot about success, but few ask, what is the foundation upon which my success is built? We strive to change our lives, but forget that if the inner source information remains unchanged, then all external changes are uncertain. Today's video will guide you through 5 key levels of awareness. The Triangle of Reality opens the door to the inner world, helping you clearly see why the external life is always a reflection of the internal. A material expression is only the surface. Changing it without changing the root is like replacing a leaf while forgetting the roots. Source concept, the true root of all beliefs, actions, and destinies. Frame of reference, the invisible lens that shapes every conclusion and reaction you have in life. The lamp of wisdom, the light that helps you see clearly instead of judging blindly. I want you to note this: the most important part of today's video is at the end, because only when you understand the full structure will you see why wisdom is not a choice, but a prerequisite to illuminating every aspect of life. No one can live your life for you, and no one can think for you. But if you can light the lamp of wisdom within, then every decision you make will lead you to desirable outcomes, aligned with principles and laws, making it easier to create the life you wish for. Let us begin today's journey, a journey that does not take you far, but leads you back to yourself. As I have shared, everything you see is merely a material expression, while the root lies within. And to change your life, you cannot just change the outside. You must learn to master the information within. Why do I say this is important? Because it is the answer to countless questions that people always struggle with. Why am I still not successful despite all my efforts? Why am I still not at peace despite practicing many methods? The reason is actually very simple. It is because you are trying to change the material expression without touching the root, the origin of that material. And this is the moment you need to know what I call the triangle of reality. A foundational structure, simple, yet not everyone truly grasps its value. It consists of 3 levels. Information creates energy. Energy creates matter. And you know what this order cannot be reversed. There can be no true matter without energy, and energy is born from information. Imagine you are looking at a tree. The trunk, the leaves, these are material expressions. But what you do not see is the root system hidden deep underground, that is information. This root system determines the entire survival of the tree. If the roots are poisoned, then even if the trunk appears green and healthy for a time, it will eventually wither. Have you ever seen someone who looks radiant on the outside, but is exhausted on the inside? They smile, they speak with confidence, but when night falls, they are drained. That is the example of a sick person trying to appear healthy. But, as I shared earlier, if the energy inside remains sick energy, then the material expression cannot be sustainable. It is like gold and lead. Both are metals, but their material expressions are entirely different. One shines brilliantly, the other is dull and heavy. Why? Because the energy they carry is different. And even deeper, it is because the structure of information inside them is different. Listen closely, you cannot change a tree by painting its leaves a new color. You must tend to the roots. That is why the triangle of reality is not just a theoretical model. It is the golden key for understanding the operating principle of all transformation. I repeat, it is the golden key to understanding the operating principle of all transformation. I call this the inner code, because once you decode this principle, you will know how to transform yourself from the deepest level. No more patchwork on the outside, no more effort in vain. If you want to shift from a failing person to a successful one, you do not need a new outfit. You need to change the information you carry within. And what is that information? It is what you know, believe, and understand. Know what a successful person is like. Believe what it means to be successful. Understand how to become one. Likewise, in other areas of life, what do you know? What do you believe? How deeply do you understand? These are the 3 foundational layers that create every expression in your life. If you believe you are not enough, not worthy, not capable, then no training program or book can change your life. But if you dare to change the source concepts inside you, you will see reality begin to change in ways you never imagined. I want you to remember one thing. You do not live according to the truth. You live according to your understanding of the truth. And that understanding is the information running through you every minute, every hour. So instead of asking, "How can I change my life?" ask instead, "What information am I carrying inside? What do I believe about myself, about money, about relationships, about happiness? And what am I willing to change in that information?" This is the very first door you need to step through to begin your inner journey. And the triangle of reality is the map that guides you, helping you turn thoughts, dreams, and desires into reality. That is why I call it the triangle of reality. From information to energy, and finally to matter. From perception to sensation, and then to expression. This is not just theory. This is the very structure of life itself. Take time to reflect deeply on this. And if you feel this could change the way you see everything, then remember, this is just the first step. This journey is long but full of promise. Because you are not just learning a model. You are learning how to live deeply and consciously. Continue following the upcoming episodes of Inner World Podcast, because in the coming sessions, I will take you deeper into each element, information, energy, and matter, and how to master each transformation step within yourself. No longer passive, no longer unclear, because true life begins from within. We have opened the first door into the inner world through the triangle of reality, a simple yet powerful structure. Information leads to energy, leads to matter. And I told you, you cannot change a tree by painting its leaves a new color. Now let us look directly at material expression and understand why it is only the surface. Everything you see, touch, and feel is merely the material expression of something deeper. We live in an era where everyone is captivated by what can be seen. People crave wealth, so they look at possessions. People dream of a healthy body, so they look at physique. People evaluate relationships through dazzling images, flowers, gifts, beautiful photos. But few ask, where do these things come from? What are they beneath the outer shell? You know, I was once asked, how can I have a happy life like that person? And I answered plainly, their happiness is not in what you see. It lies in the structure of information and energy within them. We must stop and see clearly. Material expression is only the visible part. Like an iceberg, what you see above the water is only 10%, while 90% lies deep beneath. Therefore, if you only focus on changing the expression, you are adjusting the 10%. You are using human effort to change something that is operated by information. The deeper you go into understanding, the more you will see a simple but astonishing truth. Everything can change if you change the original information inside. And that is exactly what science has proven. People can turn lead into gold, not by magic, but by altering the molecular information structure. Did you hear that clearly? Different expressions arise from different energy, and different energy comes from different information. The story of gold and lead is not about chemistry, it is a metaphor for life. Look at your own life. Is there something you have been trying to improve for years, but it still has not changed? Maybe it is a family relationship, your health, or your financial situation. And if you have tried every method, changed every outer form, and still the result remains the same, then it is time to ask yourself, am I going against the triangle of reality? You cannot pour new energy into old information. You cannot expect a new reality if the source concept within you remains limiting. That is why I share this content, not for you to simply learn something new, but so you can truly change from within. I believe that when you change, information energy changes. When energy changes material, expression changes. When expression changes, your entire life changes with it. Some people carry the information, I am weak. They do not say it out loud, but it shows in how they think, make decisions, and respond to life. No matter how hard they try to appear strong, they cannot hide the weak energy inside. And the material expression, their eyes, posture, and voice, will reflect that. And there are others who carry the information, I am whole, I am worthy, I am grateful. That information generates clear, radiant energy, and that energy naturally leads to a glowing material expression without effort. So you see, it is not about trying to become, it is about becoming from within. This is the time for you to examine yourself. What am I trying to change at the surface, while I have never touched the root information? When you speak about an aspect such as health, money, or relationships, what do you know, believe, and understand about it? If those concepts are vague, distorted, or negative, then the outer expression will match. That is the core point. The information inside you shapes your entire reality. It is not what happens to you that creates your life. It is how you understand what happens that shapes your life. And if today you start to see material expression as just a mirror, then you will no longer be stuck in trying to change the expression. You will begin to learn how to change yourself at a deeper root level that leads to true transformation. Understanding the triangle of reality is not enough. You must apply it to reverse from expression back to information. When you do that, you are no longer manipulated by reality. You actively shape it. That is the journey of mastering the inner world, the journey of awakening, the journey of returning. We have walked together from the triangle of reality, the starting point of how life operates, to the realization that material expression is only the surface, the visible tip of the iceberg. But as you and I have discussed, real change does not come from the surface, it comes from the root. And that is when we must go one layer deeper into the source concept, the true root of awareness. Every expression contains energy, and all energy is born from information. But which information is the root? The answer is the source concept, the original, primal, and deepest definitions of an event, a phenomena, or a person. If you have ever heard me say, you do not live according to the truth, you live according to your understanding of the truth, then the source concept is where that understanding begins. It is the first lens you wear when viewing life. And you know the biggest problem is not that we lack concepts, it is that we carry limiting, or worse, concepts about the very things we live by. I once asked someone, "What do you understand success to be?" He replied, maybe having a lot of money. Then I asked, "What about health?" He hesitated again, not being sick. I asked further, "What is happiness?" At that point he just looked at me in silence. It was not that he did not want to answer. He simply had no answer. No clear concept. You see, if you are unclear about the concept, you are unclear about life. A vague concept creates a vague reality, and a vague reality cannot be managed. You cannot master what you do not clearly understand. To master inner life, you must start by redefining your entire internal dictionary. Every concept, from health, money, love, to beliefs, character, and life's meaning, needs to be restructured from the root. We call it the source concept because it is the origin of all other concepts. It is the first seed, the foundational software that runs your entire system of beliefs and behaviors. You can think of it like this. If you were a computer, the source concept would be the operating system. You can add software, install apps, change the interface, but if the operating system is faulty, everything else will malfunction. Likewise, if the source concept inside you is limited, the material expression outside you will also be limited. You may be wondering, how do I know what my source concept is? The answer is very simple. Observe the reality of your life. Because your reality is the material expression of the concept you are living by. Someone who constantly struggles with finances might carry the concept that money is bad, or that they do not deserve to be wealthy. Someone who is frequently hurt in relationships might carry the concept that love is suffering. We do not need to try to explain everything. We just need to trace it back to the root concept, and then start from there to change. You know, the miracle is source concepts can be recreated. Just as scientists alter molecular information in fear to turn it into gold, you can change the information within yourself to transform suffering into peace, failure into success. But to do that, you need to ignite one foundational source concept: wisdom. Because only with wisdom can you distinguish between what is beneficial and what is not. And only with wisdom can you have the courage to examine old concepts and rewrite new ones. When you call something harmful normal, you will protect it for life. That is why you must be aware every concept can be changed. But first you must be able to see it. And that is why I say the source concept is the root of awareness. It determines how you think, how you feel, and how you act. Every time you act in life, you are acting based on the concept you carry within. So if you are looking for transformation, for real deep change, do not start with expression. Start with the concept. That is why I designed the Inner Awareness Elevation Journey for you, to understand and rebuild your own life. And I want you to begin with one important area of your life: love, work, finances, health, and write down, what do I know about this? What do I believe? What do I understand? Then reflect, is that concept beneficial or limiting? If you do that simple exercise, you will discover you do not need to change the whole world. You just need to change how you understand the world. And from there, the world changes. When you have seen the power of the source concept, the beginning of all awareness, you will realize something even deeper. The quality of a concept depends on where it is born, and that place is what we call the frame of reference. Because no awareness is independent, every concept, every belief, every conclusion you make is shaped by a perspective. And if that perspective is distorted, the entire world you see will be distorted as well. Remember this: the source concept is the seed, but the frame of reference is the soil where the seed is planted. A good seed planted in barren soil cannot sprout. Conversely, a twisted seed nurtured by a faulty frame of reference can grow into a chaotic forest in your mind. I want you to imagine this. You are standing high above and looking down. You can see the entire city. But if you are standing in an alley, you only see a wall. Different perspectives, different awareness. That is the nature of a frame of reference. We all have a frame of reference, but not everyone has an accurate one. A person who views life through the frame of reference of fear will see everything as a threat. Someone who views life through the frame of reference of competition will see every relationship as a battle. And the ironic thing is, we do not even realize which frame of reference we are using until reality begins to show problem. To change your life, you must not only change your concepts, you must upgrade your frame of reference. Because if you use a limiting frame of reference to create a concept, that concept will also be limiting. You cannot draw clean water from a salty well. So where does the frame of reference come from? It is the combination of three elements: foundational beliefs, the school of life, and sources of knowledge. If you grew up in an environment that only spoke of limitations, your frame of reference will be filled with cognitive barriers. If your knowledge came from disappointment, you will assume that life is suffering. Not wrong, just not a complete view. The big question is, what is the correct frame of reference? The answer does not lie in imposing views. It lies in the ability to generate peace, sustainability, and inner awakening in human beings. A correct frame of reference is where all concepts are illuminated by wisdom, nurtured by compassion, and verified through true transformation. I often divide the frame of reference into three layers: science, spiritual and moral values, and personal experience. When these three blend together, you have a solid foundation to reflect on all aspects of life. Science gives you logic and measurability. Spiritual and moral values give you foundational principles and direction for life. Personal experience gives you practicality and flexible application. You cannot use a purely scientific perspective to understand love. You also cannot use painful personal experiences to conclude the nature of humanity. Each frame of reference has its strengths and its limits. Only when you integrate all three can you approach truth in a comprehensive way. Let me tell you a simple story. There was a man who always failed in his career. He believed life is unfair. That was his source concept. But when we looked deeper, we found he grew up with a frame of reference where sacrifice was never rewarded. He learned that working hard brings no recognition. That was the frame of reference, the perspective that shaped his life. But you see, when the frame of reference changes, the concept changes, and the outcome of life changes too. I want you to do something right after this section. Write down 3 things you are struggling with and ask yourself, what frame of reference am I using to view this? If you discover that you are using a frame of reference of hurt, scarcity, or bias, then congratulations, you have just placed your hand on the door to deep change. A correct frame of reference is not just a tool. It is the compass that guides your life. Without it, you live on reflex. With it, you live with intention. And that is the difference between someone swept away by life and someone who lives awake. Then, every expression in life, from concept, energy to matter, becomes clear, powerful, and harmonious. Because in the end, life is not what happens to you, but what you create from the frame of reference you choose. Once you have established an accurate frame of reference as a compass to guide your life, the next question will arise. Which direction will I go? Which concept will I choose? Which seed will I plant in the garden of my inner world? And that is when you need the lamp of wisdom. Because as I have shared in the Inner World podcast, a good frame of reference is not enough. You need light to clearly see the path that frame points to. Wisdom is light. When you have wisdom, you are no longer led by circumstances. You master them. And more importantly, when you have wisdom, you begin to choose the right source, concepts, the right beliefs, and the right way to behave. But what is wisdom? Is it intelligence? Is it a degree? No. Wisdom is the ability to see the essence clearly. Wisdom is when you look at an expression and see its origin, when you look at someone's behavior and understand the pain behind it, when you look at failure and recognize the hidden lesson. Wisdom does not come from knowing a lot. Wisdom comes from knowing what is right. And to know what is right, you must have the ability to observe, reflect, and listen to yourself. Wisdom is the crystallization of 3 elements: understanding, compassion, and integrity. When these 3 come together, the light of wisdom will be lit within you. Imagine a dark room. You may have a map that is your frame of reference. You may have a direction that is your source concept. But without light, you will still stumble. That is why at every level of awareness, wisdom is always what you need first. It is the key that unlocks everything. You may have big dreams, but without wisdom, you can turn those dreams into burdens. And this is not theory. You may have seen it. Someone works hard to earn a lot of money, but sacrifices their health. Someone rushes into love, but loses themselves. Not because they are bad, but because they lack the wisdom to guide them. I emphasize the role of wisdom as the inner lamp. No one can light it for you. No one can think for you, understand for you, or live for you. Only you can light your own wisdom. And once that lamp is lit, everything becomes clear. No more arguments, no more running away. Someone asked me, I want to live in peace. How can I have wisdom? The answer lies in one word: stillness. Only in stillness can you hear your true voice. Only when you pause, observe, reflect, and refrain from judging, can you begin to understand. And remember, wisdom is not something you achieve once. It is something you nurture every day. It is a process, not a destination. Every question you ask, every new thing you learn, every time you are honest with yourself, you are feeding that lamp of wisdom. Wisdom is like a flame deep within a cave. To reach that flame, you must pass through the shadows of ego, bias, and fear. But once you touch that flame, you not only warm yourself, but also become a light for others. You see, when the triangle of reality is clear, from information to energy to matter, when the source concept is rightly chosen, when the frame of reference is accurate, then finally wisdom is what enables you to operate it all harmoniously and deeply. You will no longer live in confusion. You will begin to live consciously from within. Dear friend, if you have stayed with me until the final moments of today's journey, I believe that something within you has been awakened. Perhaps a profound question, a fresh awareness, or a belief that has been rearranged. We have walked together through the triangle of reality, peeled away the outer layer of material expression, traced back to the root of the source concept, expanded into the life-shaping frame of reference, and finally placed our hand on the lamp of wisdom within ourselves. But all of this only truly holds value when it is shared in the right way with the right people. And if you feel that the content from the Inner World podcast has touched you, made you pause, reflect, and change in a deeper direction, then you might consider subscribing to the channel, clicking like, and leaving a comment about today's episode 9. This is also how the platform will help spread this video to those who are searching for knowledge, choosing a life of depth, choosing growth from within. The world is not short of noise, but each person needs a place to return to stillness and begin the journey home. Thank you for choosing to stay until the end. See you in the next episode of the Inner World podcast. Wishing you a peaceful evening.